Once again, I want to thank Andre Corbeil for including my question in his Q&A video that he did recently. I really appreciate that. If you haven't listened to Andre Corbeil, definitely recommend that you do that. He gives great takes on wrestling. He's very informative, very entertaining. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to him, give him a look. Andre Corbeil, C-O-R-B-E-I-L. I also want to thank Big Jeff 40003 for becoming my latest subscriber. Thank you very much. So TNA did their last show in the Impact Zone, and the show started off with a rest in peace acknowledgement to William Moody, better known as Paul Bearer in the WWF/E, and he was also Percy Pringle during the NWA territory days back in the 80s. And he also did the Pringle character in TNA from 2002 to 2003. So then we see Kurt Angle, and it looks like he miraculously made his escape from the Aces and Eights hangout. And he's talking about he's going to reveal the identity of the last masked member, but he's going to wait and do it sometime during the program. And my initial thought was, you're really not going to drag this out for 2 hours until the very end. But of course we would see. So then you had Austin Aries come out, and he talks about the fact that he feels he's been disrespected by Bully Ray when Bully Ray told him last week that he was never going to become the World Heavyweight Champion again. So then he calls out Jeff Hardy, and then Hardy comes out, and then the result is an impromptu match. It's an alright match, but I just didn't see the point of it, because once again Robert Roode is not there, and as we would see, Austin Aries had no interaction with Christopher Daniels or Kazarian, Chavo Guerrero or Hernandez. So the fact that there is no build-up for this World Tag Team Championship match, and I know some people may say, well, it really doesn't need it, but you have to put a maximum effort to push all of your matches and just assume that you need to convince people to be excited about it. And the fact that there was no interaction there just really didn't make any sense. So anyway, like I said, it was a decent match, but it then was interrupted by Matt Morgan, who attacks Hardy and then makes an attempt to injure him, and then Bully Ray comes out and prevents that from happening. Now, I didn't understand what the purpose of this was. Obviously they're hinting at a Hardy Morgan program that's about to begin, but why wouldn't you wait until next week to do this? And it would have been much more appropriate. The first live Impact on the road, that would have been the perfect place to start this, not when you're trying to push a pay-per-view. So why do this now? Because we're trying to be convinced that Jeff Hardy and Bully Ray is something to be excited about for this pay-per-view on Sunday. But if you're going to have Morgan come out, attack Hardy, and then afterwards make comments about going after and getting what he deserves, then TNA is basically telegraphing that Hardy is going to retain the title. And what reason should I care about this match now as far as any possible title change? I know people are, anticipating Bully Ray turning heel, but as far as a title change is concerned, obviously that's not going to happen, because you're not going to do a Hardy Morgan program unless Hardy is still the champion. So then we go backstage and we see Sting giving some type of super pep talk to his Team TNA members. Really nothing memorable. So then we have Wes Briscoe come to the ring. And while TNA was in the UK, I made a suggestion that TNA should never put a microphone in the hand of Wes Briscoe ever again. And last night we saw a reminder of that. But obviously, since he is now in this cage match against Kurt Angle, that now forces him to speak in order to put some hype into this match. It's still a mistake, but nevertheless, Kurt Angle comes out in response to Wes Briscoe's comments, and then the two of them are going at it in the ring, and then the action spills outside the ring, and then you have D'Lo Brown, Al Snow, and Simon Diamond, who is a TNA road agent. They come out and try to break it up, and then the action goes back into the ring. Kurt Angle goes back at Wes Briscoe again, and they're rolling around, and they finally get separated. But then Kurt Angle points at D'Lo Brown, saying that's him. He charges D'Lo Brown. D'Lo Brown kicks him in the groin. He goes down. D'Lo Brown hits Al Snow. Wes Briscoe hits Simon Diamond. They go down. And then eventually we find out that D'Lo Brown was the last masked member of Aces and Eights, the vice president. Now let's go back to the point where D'Lo Brown came out along with Snow and Diamond. Now Kurt Angle looks right at him, but did not attack him. And then when the action went back into the ring, instead of Kurt Angle going after D'Lo Brown, he goes back after Wes Briscoe. What would have been so wrong with Angle going after D'Lo Brown? Then the commentators could have said, Kurt Angle's attacking D'Lo Brown. What's this all about? And then TNA could have played that out from that point however they wanted to. You still could have had the reveal, and it would have made more sense. D'Lo Brown is the vice president of Aces and Eights. Does that make him stronger? No. So then we have Devon against Sting. And no, it is not a television championship match. I don't even remember the last time Devon defended the TV title like it matters. And this was the first match of a best of 3 series in between Aces and Eights and TNA, and the winning team would have a one-man advantage during the Lethal Lockdown match at Lockdown. Now, I felt that this was something that could have been settled maybe during the time in the UK, maybe last week, and even if you waited until this week to do it, why take up precious time that could have been used to push your other pay-per-view matches? I felt that that could have been settled. The whole one-man advantage stipulation could have been settled much more efficiently which would have preserved time for you to push all the other matches that you have barely paid attention to pushing. But the fact that you have 3 matches that take up that kind of time, when this could have been settled better, really didn't make any sense. But anyway, an interesting thing during the match, Sting and Devon are outside of the ring, and some fan grabs Sting by his shirt and turns him around and throws a drink in his face. I guess a beer or something. And then Devon takes advantage of it, and he gets the pinfall. So Aces and Eights goes up 1-0 in the best of 3. And I was thinking, okay, is this a work? Who is this guy? Is this a real fan or not? It was just really odd to see that. and just another reminder of why fans just cannot get involved with the matches. I mean, that's serious crap right there. And if that was a real fan, hopefully his ass went to jail, and hopefully he'll be banned for fucking life. Because there's no excuse to put your hands on any wrestler if you're a fan. So then you had Velvet Sky backstage, and she's talking about how it feels to be the women's champion. And then Gail Kim comes up behind her, and starts talking down to her. And then Velvet Sky responds with this little light slap across the face. And Gail Kim really went out of her way to try to sell that the best that she could. Because obviously this slap was so powerful that it shut Gail Kim down so much that she couldn't even react verbally or physically to that slap. Ugh. So then you had the gut check discussions among the judges about the match last week. And Taz has been replaced by Danny Davis, who is the owner of OVW. And he's there along with Bruce Pritchard and Al Snow, and they're discussing Ivelisse Velez and Lady Tapa's match. And I want to focus on Bruce Pritchard for a moment, and the fact that this being 2 women that they're evaluating. And for some of you who have not heard this, Bruce Pritchard does not like women's wrestling. It's not a rumor, it is a fact. And that was the reason why you had a considerable amount of women leave the company last year. It was because of Pritchard and his attitude towards women's wrestling. So I knew that everything coming out of his mouth was going to be bullshit, but I tolerated it. So the 3 judges are backstage with Ivelisse Velez and Lady Tapa, and they make their decision. And they chose Lady Tapa. I said last week it would have been a refreshing surprise if both of them got picked, but I was pleasantly surprised that they picked Tapa. However, despite the fact that Tapa went on to the decision segment of Gut Check, I don't think Ivelisse Velez is going anywhere. I think we're going to see a Joey Ryan type situation here with her. And it was just the way that she walked off. It wasn't just this quick walk off camera. She kind of casually strides away, and the camera slowly follows her. And it was as if to say, I may not have gotten the contract, but you'll be seeing me again. And I think we will. So then we see Chavo Guerrero, Hernandez, and Velvet Sky coming to the ring. I said, another 6-person mixed tag team match. And it was relatively obvious who their opponents were going to be. But what was interesting was that when they came back from the commercial break, those opponents were already in the ring. They didn't get their ring introduction. I wonder why that was the case. Considering that it was Christopher Daniels, Kazarian, and Gail Kim. Now the first thing I noticed when this match started was that you had Taryn Terrell as the quote-unquote referee. And the last time they had a mixed 6-person tag team match was in the UK. And 4 out of the 6 wrestlers were women. So I guess I understood why Taryn Terrell was the quote-unquote referee for that match. But with this match, 4 of the 6 wrestlers were men, yet she's the referee, quote-unquote. I mean, she can barely officiate a women's match, and I'm giving her too much credit in that sense. So predictably, the men worked the majority of the match, and the women came in at the end, and Gail Kim got the pinfall on Velvet Sky. So Gail Kim, Christopher Daniels, and Kazarian were your winners. And that's not to say that a woman could not officiate a men's wrestling match. There are a few select female referees on the independent circuits that could probably do it. Just not this chick. So then we see another video segment with AJ Styles in Gainesville, Georgia. And I guess some vehicle approaches him. A guy gets out in the car. AJ confronts him and throws him up against the vehicle, and then he attacks the cameraman. So okay, the next progression of AJ's spiral downward. So then you had the second of the best of 3 series, Director of Chaos and Garrett Bischoff against Samoa Joe and Magnus. Now you obviously knew that Samoa Joe and Magnus were going to win this match, because obviously you're going to have 3 matches in order to create that dramatic tension. But during the match, the commentators reveal that AJ Styles is going to show up in Chicago for the Live Impact. And I thought, well, why would you tell us this? I mean, okay, if you're cutting the whole Gainesville thing short, I guess I understand that, but why couldn't you just let him just show up and let it be a surprise? I don't think anyone would have expected him to show up, but then you announce it. Oh yes, via Twitter. But I just didn't get why they could not have let that be a surprise, because I don't think anyone would have expected it. And I thought they spoiled it. But Samoa Joe and Magnus win the match and tie the best of 3 at 1-1. And we were reminded how good of a team Samoa Joe and Magnus are. Former World Tag Team Champions, and they're also the former GHC Tag Team Champions. They won that in Japan last year. And even though TNA chose not to do anything with that and make an angle out of that, but they win the match. So then we see Kenny King backstage, and he talks about a title defense at Lockdown. He doesn't care who his opponent is. So I'm thinking, okay, and we're going to obviously see Kenny King later At least that's what I thought. So then you had the gut check decision segment. The 3 judges are in the ring and Lady Tapa comes out. The crowd is booing the crap out of her, chanting no. And it looked like it was getting to her a little bit, but I thought she handled it well, maintained her composure. I wish that she had handled it the way Jay Bradley handled himself at the last gut check. Crowd was all over him and he worked it to his advantage. And I thought that Lady Tapa would have been much more comfortable if she had done the same. But that's okay. I thought she handled it well. So there were 2 yes votes and 1 no vote. The no vote coming from Bruce Pritchard, surprised. Tapa gets the contract, and obviously she's going to head to OVW. And at least now we can start mining on that potential and building for the future in the women's division. So then you had the last match of the best of 3. It was James Storm against Mr. Anderson. It was alright. You know, you had Aces and Eights come out as they walked toward the ringside, but then Team TNA came out just in case they tried to do anything. Anderson gets the pinfall, so Aces and Eights wins the best of 3 series, and they will have the 1-man advantage at the Lethal Lockdown. So then TNA Impact did a rundown for the Lockdown card. And I looked at the matches, and I noticed that there was no mention of an X Division championship match. I said, wait a minute, we just saw Kenny King earlier saying that he was going to be at Lockdown defending the title and he didn't care who his opponent was, but no mention of an X Division match. And then today I checked the TNA website and I look at the listing of the card for Lockdown, and I see that Kenny King is going to defend the X Division title in a 3-way match against Christian York and Zema Ion. And I thought, why didn't you mention this last night? Why are you posting that today when you could have promoted that match last night? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense what they're doing, Kenny King. I mean, the circumstances under which he won the title, which were not his fault. Then the fact that he didn't even wrestle last night in any type of promotion for Lockdown. And now his X Division title defense gets tacked on at the last moment. I don't get it. This man is the future of your X Division, and this is how you're crapping on him? What kind of sense does that make? So then you had Bully Ray come to the ring with Hogan's daughter, and why she was there I don't get, because he didn't need her last week when he and Jeff Hardy were in the ring with each other. Why he needs her this week? Because she did her usual adding nothing to any situation. And then Bully Ray and Jeff Hardy proceed to have just the worst ass licking session that I have ever seen. At least it started off that way. You got Bully Ray saying to Hardy, "Oh, you battled back down from diversity, and I'm proud of you." And then Hardy says to him, "Well, I know you're gonna beat the crap out of me, and whoever wins, I'm gonna be proud of you." Classic fundamental fuck up. What you're supposed to have is the champion saying to the challenger, you're not going to take this belt away from me. We can be cool with each other. I can respect you, but you're not going to beat me for this title. And the challenger says to the champion, yeah, I am taking that title from you, whether I like you or not. I do like you, but I'm still taking the title. And once that happened, when Bully Ray finally switched it up and started heading into that direction, just when there was some tension ready to be built, when Hardy was about to respond, Hogan comes out. And there was no reason for him to be there. On crutches, by the way. And Hogan proceeds to take up 2 minutes by saying nothing. Oh, but once again, making reference to TNA as being a small company. He says we've gone from a small company to a good little company. Yeah, that's a good way to display TNA's credibility, Hogan. Particularly if you have casual viewers watching. Anyway, Aces Nates hits the ring, attacking Bully Ray and Jeff Hardy, but then Team TNA comes out and a brawl breaks out and the show abruptly ends. Now the 2 minutes that Hogan wasted could have been used to show more of the brawl, or maybe a little more of a tension that was building between Bully Ray and Jeff Hardy before Hogan killed it. And maybe something could have been shown that may have convinced the person that wasn't going to order the pay-per-view to order it. I'm going to say this again. With Hogan in this company, it's never going to progress. Someone has to get rid of him, and it has to be someone who's going to have the time, the effort, and most importantly, the balls to do it. I'm Taskmart 2002, and that was my TNA Impact Analysis for March 7th, 2013. Please leave your comments below. Click like or dislike, and if you subscribe, I really appreciate it. If you have any questions about TNA or wrestling in general, you can get at me on Twitter, TazMark2002. And if your comments exceed the 140, get at me with an email, Taskmart2002@gmail.com. It was an okay show with a very poor build-up for Lockdown. An okay show that was made worse with an unnecessary appearance by Hogan and in a continuing belittling of the company. It's gotta end. I'm Taskmart 2002. Gone.